We saw Spider-Man. Let's
did.
talk about it.
What?
So I saw Spider-Man t'other day, as did you. Sam, if you could leave a like on this video, that'd be great. I will too. And if anyone else does, we'll know who you are because it'll be the three of us. And subscribe too for more crazy.
Be our friends. Like us.
There's this video is gonna be full of spoilers, by the way. So if you haven't seen the film, don't watch this video yet.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
Just do anyway, and comment beneath how we've ruined it for you. But a lot of people say it's the best one. I personally think it's very, very good, but I have my gripes with it. Tom Holland is absolutely great as Spider-Man, but in this, I feel like he is the worst Spider-Man in his own Spider-Man film because obviously we get Tobey Maguire back and we get Andrew Garfield back.
Are you saying that out of nostalgia for the nostalgia and for the gimmick of seeing those Spider-Men back? Because my main gripe, I don't think the direction is amazing, but there are some shots, there's some editing in it, and the first 40 minutes or so, I thought it felt rushed, it was a bit plodding, it would slow down in certain areas, like there was some pacing issues, and at first I thought, oof, okay. So yeah, I was a bit worried to begin with. Once Doc Ock turns up, essentially, then everything changes for me. But yeah, I think the first, say, 40 minutes or whatever, it wasn't great.
A bit of a slog to get through.
Yeah, just disjointed. I just felt like it was all rushed. It's like they spent 80% of their time editing and finessing everything else, and then they were like, "Shit, guys, we haven't edited the first half of the film yet. Quick!"
There were no sort of wow shots, nothing very visually stimulating at the beginning. No. But then, like I said, Doc Ock turns up. The story picks up pace. The action sequence on the freeway was quite fun. The difference there is I thought, are they going to try and top the train sequence from Spider-Man 2? But they didn't. They just went with some cool choreographed flips and thwips to rescue some civilians, which was good fun. Spider-Man cleared his name because at the very beginning of the film, everyone on the fence. Do they love him? Do they hate him? Because obviously Mysterio pinned him as a bad guy, but a lot of people already like Spider-Man, and a few people then brought back onto Spider-Man's side.
Yeah.
Then we start to get other villains crop up, don't we? So we have Willem Dafoe's return, the Lizard, who I know you don't like the design, but did you feel the effects for Lizard in this were worse than they were 9 years ago in Amazing Spider-Man? I thought he looked really cartoony in this.
Like I kind of feel anyway with Marvel films that a lot of the CGI stuff, apart from like Thanos or whatever, but a lot of it has this typical CGI glossy cartoony sheen to it anyway.
Sure, yeah.
So it felt fine. Like it didn't take me out, but when I saw him again, I was just like, oh, it's the Lizard, cool. Still don't like the look of him. And that was my takeaway from a Lizard. Hot take.
So basically, all these characters, because Spider-Man wants to do this magic spell, which will make everyone forget who he is. But then halfway through the spell, he says, oh, actually, I don't want MJ to forget. She's first, by the way, because not Aunt May, MJ, because he cares about her the most. A girl he's been dating for a week or whatever it's been.
Hey, that's a bit mean. It's young love.
Yeah,
young love, James.
When you grow up, it's all like, oh yeah, I remember that. What a twat I was.
It's young love. How dare you?
Silver twats. Anyway, my point is that he mucks up this wish, which then brings people through from another dimension who know who he is, because which I thought was quite a clever twist. He's trying to make people forget, and people who already know come on in. We only see familiars. We didn't see others because I thought, oh, they could use this opportunity to throw in, say, Rhino from a different universe that we've never seen before. Because let's face it, if there's an infinite amount of universes, you can put an infinite amount of characters in. They could all be different. They didn't. They just put in the ones they knew, which is probably the safer bet because then you don't have too many characters. And let's face it, Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 had too many characters.
I also feel it would have been weird to bring back villains we've already seen before, but in a different skin.
Sure.
You know, because it'd be like, oh, look, the Green Goblin again. Oh, look, it's this character again, but different. Whereas at least this way, they're doing that, bringing in those iconic villains, but there's weight to them. And the reason I think it's such a smart decision is because they've had their own films with characterizations and arcs. So it's not just a villain. Like Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 doesn't work because you're establishing these villains, giving them their origin story, and then dealing with them all in one film. Whereas this time they've had all that. So we've got that familiarity with them. Most of Spider-Man, if you think of Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire films, Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Sandman, and even the bastard Venom, it always ends his confrontations. The end always ends with his mask off. It's always Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker confronting them in the end. Whereas you look at, and even I think, you have to remind me, Amazing Spider-Man, I'm pretty sure it's Peter Parker with Doc Connors at the end. Like the mask is off.
Yeah, I think so.
But I know with like Electro, it's not. And then if you look at Homecoming, like all the villains, what I'm saying is the villains in Spider-Man usually end, their gripe is with Spider-Man, but it always ends up being Peter Parker, but the one that ends up defeating them.
For me, there are two scenes that stole the film, and we're coming up to one. The sequence where Peter Parker, basically, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, decides they're going to cure all of them from their ailments and put them back because Doc Strange says, you got to kill them. They'll die. So we're going to send them back for them to die.
It's their fate.
Tis their fate. I found all the scenes of him quite dull, if I'm honest, and quite.
I dig him. I was all right with it. I thought the whole I've been dangling over the Grand Canyon for 12 hours was a bit of a cop out, but I thought it was good. I dug him.
Maybe I'd seen too many of the trailers for like a year and a half, which is why I thought to myself, I feel like I've seen this. I was just waiting for the Doctor Strange.
Most of his stuff is in the trailers, yeah.
He's normally quite serious, and this just had like a scary kind of Grinch grin on his face, and I thought, why is he acting so creepy? I know other people suggest he wasn't Doctor Strange, who's maybe Mephisto or another Marvel character, but anyway. So he's got to send all the characters back.
What?
Don't worry.
Okay, thank God.
He's got to send all of these villains back, right? When he fights the Green Goblin, he fights Willem Dafoe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Willem Dafoe was historically known as the Green Goblin with the Power Ranger suit, like you said, very cheap, not menacing.
If he doesn't break it.
When he reveals that he is the dominant side of the Norman Osborn Green Goblin split personality, and we think we've been talking to Norman the whole film, but it's actually the Goblin, which we could all see coming, let's face it. There's a sequence when they're fighting in a corridor and Peter Parker is kneeling on his shoulders and he's sat on his face or whatever, and he's just punching.
That's a different film. That's a different film.
He sat with his head between his legs and he's punching Willem Dafoe in the face. And as his face comes back round, he grins more and more and laughs maniacally like a psycho. And the way he's lit with the flickering lights of everything that's going on, I just thought they finally done him as an insane monster as opposed to a cheesy, we'll meet again, Spider-Man. Like, he was actually really good. And that was my probably favorite sequence, that him punching him in the face repeatedly and seeing how evil Dafoe was, because before he was a baddie, but in this he was proper evil.
Yeah. And it brings that back because he's very much the bad guy in this one. So it mirrors that first Tobey Maguire one quite well. But I think, and you touched on this now, I think I'm going to say the genius of this film is the fact that it doesn't just take these characters, the villains, or other characters as well, that we've known before, and bring them back as like a gimmick. Like, oh, guys, remember this character from this film? It's back. And then be done with them. It brings them back, it makes them integral to the plot and helps drive the plot and Peter Parker's forward, but also develops those characters as well. You know, so it's my main worry going in was that it was just going to be a bit of a gimmick fest, and it really wasn't. I was very pleasantly surprised by how it was an integral plot device to bring them back and to have them, because I wasn't expecting them to be in the film as much as what they were. They dominated that middle and end. I thought they'd come in for a little bit and then disappear, but you know, I thought it was really well done in terms of a film that relies on the nostalgia, and lovingly looks back, but then takes those elements and then does something with them that's interesting, but also in aid of characters that aren't related to them. Because it's all, as much as we have all these characters, we never lose sight of it's Tom Holland's Peter Parker's the spearhead of the entire film. And everything that happens, even with the other Peter Parkers, it's all in development of Tom Holland.
He does a really good performance as well. I mean, I must admit, I felt the opposite coming out. I felt that it was cheap thrills all the way through, with lines like, lines like "I'm something of a scientist myself."
Oh yeah, but yeah, that's, I mean, yeah.
With all the characters in the other films, if you've not seen the other films, it makes no sense. And I kept leaning over to the missus and be like, "That means this. This means this," and then. Which is kind of half the film felt like. If you hadn't seen the 5 other films or whatever, or all the Marvel ones too, it didn't make an awful lot of sense in that regard.
No, true.
But the plot points that they put together because basically they wanted the 3 Spider-Men at the end. They put the villains in to get there, and they had to put the story in at the beginning to get your bad guys, to get your 3 Spider-Men. It worked, but it felt to me like all they wanted to do was have the 3 Spider-Men on the screen at the end, and they wrote a story to make that happen. But it worked well enough. But like you said,
I think that's a fine enough way to develop.
Start at the end.
How do we start at the end, and exactly, as opposed to, oh, because this happens, and then what? I don't know. Then this can happen.
Checking that's what Tolkien did. So they're gonna have a ring here. And they got to drop it in this mountain here.
Yeah.
Right.
Filler.
The fight with the Green Goblin then leads to the death of Aunt May. Now, straight away, I was like, I hate this, because this is the typical Hollywood, Marvel, Star Wars. It has to be epic. Has to make you laugh, it has to make you cry, it has to have adventure, it has to have everything. It can't be just an Indiana Jones film. It can't just have an action adventure finish, which I feel comic book films should be. The most recent Star Wars films, take for example.
I disagree, but carry on.
Okay, the Star Wars films, for example. First one, they killed off Han Solo. Second one, they killed off Luke. Third one, they killed off.
Yeah, but they're shit. We're not talking about shitty Star Wars films.
Is that all these Disney and all these companies like, let's make a big epic. It can't just be the next in series, a stepping stone for the next one. It has to breach $1 billion. It's got to make more money.
Yeah.
Fuck the fans. Let's just make as much money as we can. It could make like 800 million, and that's great. But we want it to hit $1 billion, and we're gonna have the tears, and anyway. They killed off Aunt May, and I thought that was stupid, because I quite like the character, and as you know from Spider-Man, he's already lost Uncle Ben, but Disney didn't want to retread on old ground, so they didn't include any of that. So the Disney version, the Marvel MCU version, he loses someone else, and that is Tony Stark. So we've actually already had the moment where he loses that person who's pivotal in his life. So we didn't need to lose Aunt May too. However, now I'm going to skip slightly to the end here, but we'll go back, Sam, so don't worry. Okay?
Yeah.
Sony and Disney are sort of on the bench with the Spider-Man. They get to use him. Sony want to use him. A lot of people are saying Sony should just give up and let Spider-Man go to the MCU. I disagree entirely. Spider-Man is the most popular superhero character. I used to feel differently, but now I kind of feel like they could go away and do their own cinematic universe with all the different Spider universes and do the whole Spider-Man coming together to fight for the greater good. Now, right at the end, Spider-Man, we're going to go back, don't worry. Spider-Man gets his own apartment.
You're taking me on a ride.
I am. He gets his own apartment. He no longer has any of the Stark stuff, which in the comics Spider-Man never has. He has to work for years before he gets anywhere close to the Iron suit. He's always got his own homemade suit. He's always friendly neighborhood. Yes. He gets a job and he fights villains. But from the very first Marvel one, they said, oh, no, we don't want to do all that. We're going to give him a tech suit, and it's got its own AI, and it's all very just like Tony Stark. Yeah. What they've done with this film is at the very end, and with this whole Aunt May stuff, they've actually rebooted itself. They've done a soft reboot at the end of the film, because it leaves off with him not remembering who, or his friends not remembering who he is. Yeah. So he has to find love again. He might not find MJ. They might go down the Gwen Stacy route. He has to find his friends again. Okay. He has to make his own suit, which you actually see the original suit with no tech in it right at the end, and it's all the colors of the original 60s costume from Amazing Fantasy. He didn't necessarily ever have to go back to the MCU. Happy doesn't know who he is. None of the Avengers know who he is. So they've rebooted Spider-Man, so Sony no longer have to go back and join the MCU. It's a little bit backwards because normally he starts off with the rubbish suit and gets the tech suit and the iron suit and goes to space, but he joins the Fantastic Four. I think he might join the Fantastic Four anyway, because I believe the director who did this is doing Fan 4, or
I have no idea, but sure.
But do you see how like the Aunt May thing then kind of works? Because we're actually seeing not the third Tom Holland film, sixth altogether, because he's done 2 Avengers and a Captain America film. We're not seeing the 6th. We're actually at the end, we're seeing the first, or the 0.5.
So all of this was to get around to the point of, I didn't like the Aunt May death at first, but now I do.
No, exactly. When I saw it on screen, I was like, that was ridiculous. That was fucking stupid. But now it makes sense. If they're rebooting it, and if they're moving away from Disney, then, well, yeah, because she was her Uncle Ben, and now we're at film 1. So the next film can go into him on his own, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. And if they want to do the cinematic universe, they can bring the others back. They can bring Tom Hardy's Venom in for a joke to help them, because he could be the hero, the lethal protector. But do you see how I mean that most films have the death? I felt it was really unnecessary watching it, but at the end, it kind of made sense.
I loved it. From when it was happening.
You're big on death, though, aren't you?
I do love death.
I think every TV show every film should be like Game of Thrones. Just kill off all the protagonists.
Yeah, kill them all. Fuck them and kill them. So
better that order than the other, I suppose.
Yeah, kill them and fuck them. So my thing was, when I was watching the scene, and that thing fucking hits her. Like, she should have been insta-killed.
Yeah.
The fact that she was up afterwards and talking, and I was like, oh, I feel dizzy.
That was like a Mortal Kombat spine snapped, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was her death was completely warranted, and I loved it. Because from the second she said the words, with great power comes great responsibility. It says the Uncle Ben lines. Because like you, I thought, okay, they're going to kill her off. It gives Spider-Man the anger and all this other stuff to go for it and whatever. Gives him that drive. But now all of a sudden it works on a different level, because, as you said, we've never seen Uncle Ben before. Now, I don't think Tony Stark was ever an Uncle Ben, because Tony Stark was like a superhero mentor. He was always helping, obviously, Spider-Man, giving him the tech stuff, but it was never about responsibility and essentially being a human being and becoming a man. And we'd never had that Uncle Ben death scene. We'd seen it in the Maguire and Garfield movies, but not in with Holland. And it suddenly made me realize, because I think we all assumed it already happened. But what I think it made me think was, there never was an Uncle Ben. And Spider-Man and Peter Parker had had this life of, being raised by his aunt and going to school and having friends and getting these powers. And he's always had a really good life. Think about it. He hadn't had much hardships. All his Spider-Man films always ended on a happy note. But the key to Spider-Man for me is that he is a character that is constantly punished. Look at all the other Spider-Man films. There's always something that goes bad. As much as he might win against the villain, he's always being punished. There's always something going wrong. And it makes him, identifiable. So for Aunt May to suddenly take on this role of Uncle Ben, she's almost raised him and has taught him everything. And now he was on his own, other than, he had at that point his friends and whatnot. But his real key to reality and key to being a human being and everything he'd known is now gone, it's been taken away. Not only gives him that kind of driving force for revenge, but I just thought it was such a beautiful way to bring in that Uncle Ben storyline, but completely take the important properties of it and give it to her. And I think it's important to think is that we said in the last video that like, oh, this actor's too this for Spider-Man, he doesn't represent that. But now I think you can really look at it and go, well, it's just a different version.
Yeah.
I'm sure in some multiverse there is a black Spider-Man and all that stuff. Like, it's just a version. It's not the version. So then by the time you get to, and this is why I was getting really excited, because the film ends and he as you said, he's on his own. He has no tech. He's got his suit is back to basics, even though it looks sick. He's living in an apartment. He's got no friends. He's cut off from the Avengers. No one knows who he is, and whatever. And to me, it's the real starting point of Spider-Man. Like, beforehand, it was like the trilogy of him becoming Spider-Man, and he had all the tech and the fun, and oh, this is amazing, and I get my friends, I got my aunt, and I get Tony Stark and all this. And it's like, yeah, you've had a good life, haven't you? Yeah. Gone. Now you're on your own. Now you got to make money. Now you're going to carry on doing the superhero stuff. You've got no safety nets. And for me, that's more exciting because it kind of feels like the place where we were within Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire's one.
Yeah.
Where it is going to be him doing pizza rounds and pizza time and all this other stuff to earn a buck. But also I think you can get a little bit darker, you can get a little bit more adult, because I think it is those high school years now of child-friendly Marvel superhero Spider-Man are done.
Anyway, that was the end of the movie. Let's go back to the left off. So Aunt May dies.
Yeah.
And then the Scooby Squad, Spider-Man's friend, open a portal looking for Peter, and you see they say, find Spider-Man, and in the distance you can see Spider-Man, and it's quite obvious it's not our Tom Holland Spider-Man. No, yeah, it's Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and he comes on through and takes off his mask and he explains, and they don't believe him, and there's quite a comical bit. But what was really funny about him is this film, he was solidly comical. Like, you felt sorry for him because everyone knows his Spider-Man 2 is the worst Spider-Man film made, right? And it was kind of, he even jokes about fighting a Russian guy in a rhino suit.
Yeah, man, he missed out on aliens and all this other stuff. Yeah.
He's the loser in this. There's a bit of the three Spider-Men stood there and he goes, I'm Peter 1, you're Peter 2, you're Peter 3. He goes, I'm Peter 3. And he's like, fine, I'll be Peter 3. He's like, I'm the loser. It's like, he accepts that he's the loser in the group, but technically they should all be the same. They should all be as capable. And he's there saying how useless he is. And Tobey Maguire says to him, you're amazing.
Well, I love the fact that, I don't think he sees himself as like the loser amongst the three. I think he's just has like, he's clearly had a shitty life since Gwen died. Yeah. And, I just don't, like, he's still humorous, but obviously very, you can see that bitterness there, and like he sees Tom, I'm not going to refer to him as Peter. When Peter sees Peter do this and the other Peter, it's going to get confusing. When Garfield sees Holland kissing or talking to Zendaya, and you can see there's that real loss. And he, not that he's envious, but he misses that. And there's something that, he really wishes he had. But this is what I was saying about even with the villains. They bring in these characters and they don't just go, oh, look, guys, it's Garfield. Remember him? Hey, same suit, zippy one-liners. But it's like, okay, no, what's happened to him since? And how can he take his history and experience of being Spider-Man and help Tom Holland? And it's the same with Tobey Maguire. Like Tobey Maguire talks about how he got his revenge and how he, it didn't help. And he doesn't want him to go through with that, because if he can help him, he will. So they all bring their experiences to help elevate Tom Holland. And I thought it's great writing again. One of my favorite scenes is when Maguire shoots his web, and they're all like, "Oh my god!" He's like, "You guys can't do that."
He's so like, I wasn't a fan of him as before, but as an older Peter Parker, I thought he stole it. He was just so sort of just blasé about it. He's like, "Oh, okay, I'm Spider-Man," and he didn't get angry. He didn't make jokes. He was just like, "Okay," and carried on. He was the same as he was years ago, but better now he's older.
I loved how he was caring, because I think all the Peters have that caring sensibility. So it's like, "Oh, you have back issues? I got back issues." He's cracked the back, and and then at one point they're giving themselves like a pep talk. It's like, "No, man, you're amazing," and whatever. I needed to hear that, and and I thought.
Yeah, that was all very meta, because Tobey Maguire hurt his back and nearly had to pull out of Spider-Man 2, didn't he?
Yeah.
They replaced him, but he went back. And the fact he's amazing is because he played amazing Spider-Man.
No, sure, but even if you didn't have that knowledge, it's still just fun banter between different Spider-Men from different universes. Yeah. Giving themselves pep talks, and I think it's the type of stuff that fans of these films wanted to see, these different Spider-Men. I mean, the fact is, 20 years ago, we had Spider-Man 1 and we had X-Men. I love Blade, but we're not counting Blade because that's like a hard R vampire film. But there's a superhero films, we didn't have much. And you think, now, think of what we have with the MCU, and you think we've just seen a film where there are 3 different Spider-Men, each with their own universes, franchises, coming together to help propel a younger Spider-Man into the next chapter of his life. It's just, I keep thinking about like the kind of content that we now, as comic book fans like you, but not necessarily me, but superhero fans and just nerdy geeks that enjoy this shit. Like, we've never had it better. And I think you can say, "Oh, the film didn't quite, there are some plot holes here and this bit was a bit cheeky." It's like, step back and realize the type of film that we just got. It's a phenomenal achievement, and we are so lucky to have it.
I could tell from just sort of the filmmaker part of the brain that to keep it hush hush, it was very low key entrances. So when Garfield's character emerges, it's all in a house, and there's only a few characters there. And when you
if we're going to talk gripe, sorry, I didn't mind it for Garfield because it was, oh my God, Garfield. But then they do the exact same trick with Maguire.
Exactly.
I kind of felt like Maguire needed, because he was saying how he felt like he had to find this world's Peter Parker. I felt it would have been better had he turned up on my rooftop to find Peter before the others found him. Yeah. So he found Peter, and then the other guys came along.
That would have been better, yeah. But
I mean, I'm making minuscule, like, I think it's a fantastic film. I really do.
But to keep them under wraps, it all had to be small set, low cast, and or at the end, it's all CGI on a set. So they probably didn't have many people there. It was all green screen. And then when they put the hoods on, it just goes, "Off you go, actors. We'll do this digitally later." So
Can you imagine, Mo? Because I read that the initial idea was to sell the film as Spider-Man versus Doctor Strange, right? And you didn't really know why, but there was a conflict. So obviously, like, everyone's going to go see that anyway because it's a new Spider-Man film. And then halfway through, like, you had no idea that all these characters were going to be coming back. Can you imagine walking in? Like, obviously, there's no way you get away with that nowadays with the internet and stuff. But, you could have done 20 years ago. But can you imagine stepping into Spider-Man going, "Oh, it's Spider-Man versus Doctor Strange. I can't wait to see why they're fighting," and all this other stuff, and all the Inception style crazy stuff they're going to do. And then 40 minutes in, Doc Ock turns up, and then Green Goblin, and all this, and then all these other, like the audience would have lost their shit. And they did enough with this one, but can you imagine if there was no build up to it? It was just like, oh, guys, double massive dicks on the table. It's like, ah!
Well, I think the other element of it, of the surprises that they could have had were, like I said, we only pulled from the two franchises we knew, which makes sense. When you see that tear, you can see all different sort of wobbly, ghost-like figures of characters such as Rhino, but they don't really give you detail.
I didn't really know.
When he says, I was part of the Avengers, and they just go, what was that? Is that a band? I would have loved it if they turn around and were like, yeah, us too. And then we find out that, because it's been, like you said, nearly 10 years for one, or 2014, so 7 years for one. And it's been 7 years for Amazing. And the other one was 2007, so 14 years. And he just goes, they don't mention any other battles. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if he said, oh, yeah, like Tobey Maguire was like, oh, yeah, I did too. I had a fight with Wolverine once. And then just threw in the name of the X-Men. And then he would be like, who's Wolverine? He goes, you don't have the X-Men here? Just something like that would have been cool because Marvel owned them. And I felt that was a missed opportunity. And it wouldn't have added too much to it. If they really wanted to, they could have chucked in Hugh Jackman or, someone as a joke because they've opened up a multiverse.
This is it. And the idea as well that, like, at the end of the day, it's a Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, but the whole idea of a multiverse is it's infinite. So exactly. There are going to be, like, infinite versions of a Tobey Maguire Spider-Verse and this and that. So it's, no doubt there's going to be multiverses where it's Tobey Maguire with the Avengers and Andrew Garfield with X-Men or whatever. But this is the great thing about the multiverse and where they've done it in this film is, like, I enjoyed it with Into the Spider-Verse because it was a very self-contained, like, oh, we'll just bring a couple of Spider-Men in and have them run around in the court. And I do love that film. I think it's great. But this one has so much more, it's much more grandiose because obviously it taps into so much more. I mean, essentially, it taps into our childhoods because we were growing up watching the Tobey Maguire films. Exactly, so for us, it's like massive hits of nostalgia whilst also giving us something completely new. And I think it was the right way to handle it because it looks back at everything that's come before it. The MCU, but obviously all the Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire films, it looks back at those with respect. And then what it does is it uses the stuff back here to push forwards. Whereas I think if you look at other films like the Star Wars franchise, they are too busy looking back going, hey guys, nostalgia, but they're not even thinking about going forwards. They're not using this.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Favorite moment of the film, other than the punching in the face of Willem Dafoe, which was the catch of MJ.
Yes,
when Garfield catches her, because he's such a good actor. Let's face it. Have you seen Hacksaw?
Dude, that broke me.
Brilliant. I love that guy. I think he's fantastic. Give him all the Spider-Man films. He caught her and he welled up. Charlotte, my missus next to me, grabs me and like held me really tight, and she just started to cry because she knew how he felt.
Yeah.
And you said it before in the last video. The best thing about those films was their relationship. Emma, what's the actress called? Emma Stone?
Ross is going to hate us now.
Emma Stone?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Google?
Anyway.
Confirmed. Emma Stone. No, it is Emma Stone. Yeah.
Yeah, but you said it was, and of course, even though that Spider-Man 2 film, Amazing Spider-Man 2, was a little bit messy, the fact that they had the goal to kill her off at the end, that bit had a lot of
I give him credit for that. I give him credit for just taking her out. I do. I mean, it's a ballsy move.
But the performances were both solid.
Absolutely. Look, I've said before, as much as I have issues with those films, and I really don't like that Amazing Spider-Man 2, you cannot knock the performances, you can't knock their chemistry, and the fact that out of that shit show of a script, the fact that they decided to kill off Gwen Stacy at the end, because again, Peter Parker cannot have an easy life, I thought it was, well done. And when, like, going back to, I keep wanting to say, we need to get rid of the homes. No way home. There's fucking homes in there. when he went to catch her, like he dove off, and I remember thinking, even when I saw the trailer, I was like, it's got to be Andrew Garfield that catches her, because they did that right at the end of the trailer. It shows her falling, and he jumps off. And I'm like, why are they doing a grunt? Oh, they're gonna make it Andrew Garfield. They have to. So when he jumps, he's about to catch her, and I was almost there going, no, fuck off. You haven't earned this. And he, gets knocked away, and then Garfield jumps in and grabs her. And it was a lovely moment, but it was that he's smiling because he did it, but then there's that well up of, like, I've redeemed something. Like, not only have I saved, I've saved this other Peter from this life of heartbreak.
That part that was broken.
But I've also saved a part of myself by, I've done something to bring some peace to my life. Yeah, and absolutely. For some reason, considering I don't like Amazing Spider-Man 2, but when that happened in that little wedding up moment, man, I shed a tear. I was like, fuck, that's beautiful writing. Again, looking back to what's happened before and doing something with it, it's.
I know you're right. It's probably nostalgia. But those guys, I felt, stole the film at the end, and I was remiss when they didn't have the end credits with Maguire going home to Kirsten Dunst and Spider Girl. He has a daughter, like a little 6-year-old web slinging around the room.
But it's not that film. Like, it's great to have them in it. I think let them go, and they went. Yeah. I don't want any more of them. I don't want. There's rumors going around that Sony's now being like, Amazing Spider-Man 3 because it's done well, and I'm like, no, you guys can't be trusted. Garfield will come back like a fucking a loving puppy just to get kicked down again. Like, don't do it. Just leave it. We've got a really good Spider-Man. We've been building it for a long time. You've just done so much honor and justice to these characters. Sony, stop fucking flogging this goddamn dead horse. Let Marvel take the reins and do something good with it.
What's it going to take for you to forgive Sony?
For them to leave Spider-Man alone.
Okay, then. I would also have liked to have had, if not in the post-credits then, just if, say you're right, say you want them to never do it again, fine. But let's face it, neither of those films had resolution in any great way for the characters, because the third one finished with him and MJ on the rocks, and then Spider-Man 4 was scrapped for a reboot, so it was never resolved. Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2, again, it just got to the point where he was getting started and they scrapped the franchise, which was annoying. So even if they had 20 seconds each at the end of this film, not in the post-credits or anything like that, where he goes home, you see him with his wife, and then we're like, right, great, we know that franchise is done, bookend it. And then you see Amazing Spider-Man, what would have been nice is he goes into like a coffee shop or something, and he meets a girl, what's your name? She says, MJ. And he realizes it's who he's meant to be. You see him smile or something, and then they book. You never even see her face, and
it's too much.
No,
they had resolutions to their characters, and they went off. It was enough.
No, they didn't have what you mean? The resolution is the fact they helped Peter and Tom Holland, and then bugger.
Yeah, like they're clearly going to go off back home and do their own Spider-Man stuff and live their own lives. Cool. And you know what? Fan fiction away, people. You can think what you like. I don't care. But at the end of the day,
so many
it's not that fucking film. It's Tom Holland's films, and this is what I mean. Like, they came in, they did their bit, they pushed the story forward, job done, get the fuck out, credits. And that's what they did, and I was very happy with that.
I thought it was a good film. I don't think it was the greatest film ever made.
No, of course not.
I thought it was choppy at the beginning, and I felt it was a struggling mess to get to the pinnacle, which was the 3 Spider-Men.
Yeah, and there's no like beautiful shots,
Which
the
could have
CGI is all kind of good but not great, or not like fantastic. It lacks like a sense of style. Like, you look at the Raimi films, it's drenched in that kind of, almost like a horror aesthetic with, even though I mock the zooms and all that other stuff, but it's very much a stylized film, and even the Amazing Spider-Man have those moments, but these ones didn't. It feels very like how Marvel films will look the same.
Yes, they all look like they're shot with no filter. S-log.
Yeah, there's S-log, and then the stuntmen come in to do the action sequences and all this, So it's like cut and paste cookie formula, and Spider-Man has very much been a part of that. And I am okay with that because it's about the build-up. But now that Spider-Man is on his own and doing his own thing now, I feel like bring in directors and give them a lot more creative liberties in terms of the style and look of the film and let them go with it.
So I think that the first one with Tom Holland, Homecoming, was a good, solid, on its own. Like you said, the beginning of him, the villain wasn't too big. We said this the other day. He wasn't too big. He was just about right. Same with the second one. I quite like the globe-trotting European stuff. And I like they did Mysterio. They tried a different bad guy. It was fresh. We'd never seen it before.
Cool.
This one I felt a little bit too much. But at the same time, when it was all finished and said and done, it was a stepping stone for what's next. The Venom in the credits, hopefully we'll one day get a nice Venom with it, because there'll be a Eddie Brock in this world. We'll get a nice story. Spider-Man's got nothing. The very ending with the sort of the new suit. I hope that this sets up the next 4 or 5 films, because let's face it, Spider-Man's been going for 60 years nearly, and he has had, I mean, the Amazing Spider-Man comic run is on something like nearly something stupid, 1,000 issues, thousands and thousands of issues. He's the biggest superhero in the Marvel comics. They should keep it going. Don't reboot it. Use Tom Holland. Fans like him. Just fucking do it. It's simple. You make your money, Sony. Don't worry. And let Marvel help, because they'll make it good. Sony, you pay.
Let
Marvel, you help.
Away. Yeah.
Both of you, stop being Muppets and fucking sort it out. Sam says.
Listen to me.
All right. Well, let's wrap up the video. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. If you haven't enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can follow me on Twitter at Captain Jim Lyle, and you can follow Sam on Twitter.
What is it? Samwise on Film.
Samwise on Film. He is the one not paying attention.
No, I can never remember. You're saying, and I'm thinking, what's my Twitter handle? What is my Twitter handle? And I'm thinking, it's something to do with Samwise. Is it Samwise take on film? I can never remember what it is. Sorry.
Sam, just say this is Roughneck Movies.
This is Roughneck Movies.